Hey everyone, this is a clip from a recent episode of Another Pass, where we talk about movies and all the struggles that go into making them. If you like it, check out the whole podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.
Watching this after watching Conquest, like in a reverse order, it made me appreciate all the things that like Montalban is doing to be this sort of like huckster, kind of like emphasizing specific points to make people pay less attention to him. Where like when he goes on his whole tear about being like the first chimpanzee born in a circus, like he does the same stuff in the following movie, and it's for the same effect. It's him like really boasting about this like one detail that no one cares about at all, so that people stop asking him questions because he's just going to drone on about a thing that they don't care about, even though he actually does know the answers to the questions that they are trying to ask, but he's deflecting. And I love the performance from Montalban. He's such like a wonderful addition to this franchise.
Agreed.
Yeah. No, it's definitely a great performance, an eccentric performance. But you know, it's interesting that it's a circus owner and not like a Diane Fossey type character, like someone who thinks so much of apes. I just don't think we associate circuses with kindness and gentleness to animals.
I think their PR was a lot better at this point.
Yeah, that's true.
PR may have been better, but I bet the treatment was even worse.
Probably. But this movie exists in a world where like screenwriters are writing about how they perceive things. Again, there's also this vibe of like, but the principles of the United States of America, we can't kill them without due process kind of stuff.
I laughed out loud during that.
Yeah. No, it is funny. Yeah, I'm not sure what kind of president that was supposed to be, and it doesn't even strike me that it's much of a president. Like, would this Dr. Heinlein really get in to see the president? You know, is he that high up? And if he is that high up, you know, is he a member of the chief of staff? In which case, if he recommends to waste the apes, they're going to waste them.
Yeah. I mean, didn't they say that he was like in conjunction with the CIA that he was doing the interrogation?
Yeah, like he somehow got the job. He was put on that council in the beginning.
Yeah. He's some kind of science advisor, and he's actually a callback to the first movie where they reference Haslein's theory of time travel or and how it plays with relativity. So they specifically were trying to like allude to a scientist that Taylor was already aware of. So it like clearly he was fairly high ranking.
I dug the explanation of regressive perspective with the painting and the painter who paints the painting, and he steps back. He's got to paint himself over and over. I thought that was a pretty cool explanation for it, and basically explains why Haslein can see this cyclical sort of potential future that we could be racing towards.
Yeah, and this movie, unlike every other movie in the franchise, actually has sequel bait at the end. So it is actually a movie that is anticipating having some kind of story to follow up from it.
But it could live in its vacuum, right?
It could, yeah.
Because after little Milo is born, we know what's going to happen. You know, we know what's logically going to happen. They told us in the interview about the whole animal. So like, you don't need another movie. You know what's going to happen at the end of this one. So the other ones are a little unnecessary. But if they want to elaborate some stuff,
yeah. I mean, I end up liking Conquest a lot, even if it like speeds up the timetable in a way that doesn't really make sense. Even in the most, even if with all the time travel shenanigans, it's like impossible to understand how you get to Conquest in 1993. But still, whatever. Like it's true. This movie could also just be the end point and just like leaving it hanging. You're like, all right, yeah, in like 200, 300 years or whatever, it's going to eventually sort of map out that way. And I really like the explanation for the Planet of the Apes that we get in this movie. Like the idea that we would have hundreds of years of apes as pets because we need pets. And they like talk about humanity's own like flaws in that regard. Like I really like being like, people just like they'll kill each other, but they need to have a pet dog, or you know, that kind of,
they won't harm their dog.
Yeah, I really like that being cast at our society. And then this explanation of like, yeah, and eventually once we realize that we can exploit them, we will start exploiting them. And like that whole buildup over hundreds of years, I think is really cool. Like I think that the fact that none of the other Planet of the Apes movies have really like had like, here's a logical explanation without requiring like some sort of virus that cures Alzheimer's but also kills people, or here's, you know, time traveling ape from the future who's bringing his super smart genes, and it's just like going out there in the world. Like this is the only one where it's like, here is a rational enough progression, especially considering the idea that apes just fill in for where we were initially. Like they're not innovating, at least for a while. Like that the chimpanzees like might actually start having real science, but at first it was just like, the human I was serving had me go into the factory and working, so now I'm going into the factory and working. And then like the foreman just like saw a human shouting at his workers, so he's shouting at his workers the same way, kind of stuff.
Yeah, and enough of human culture had to exist for the apes of the Planet of the Apes to have mirrored it, kind of to observed it and to have aped it. I think that's a phrase. And you know, that's what they're doing. They're aping human behavior because it's what they've seen. So enough must have been passed down orally. I think the apes do have writing, so and in written that they understand how they should behave as a society, in the wrong ways maybe.
Remember, if you like that clip, check out the podcast. You can find it at certainpov.com or wherever you get your podcasts.